Oh, hello. Hold on. All right, so this is not Talkback Tuesday. I'm going to actually have to rework that. But I actually wanted to talk a little bit about this guy right here. This is the Florida Attorney or Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo. And he is absolutely bananas in the state of Florida. And he's been problematic since he has been appointed the Surgeon General in the state of Florida by Ron DeSantis several years ago. He was appointed during the COVID era, and he immediately joined the administration and started casting doubt as to the effectiveness of COVID vaccines and things like that. He's been a vaccine denier and skeptic from the very beginning. And also a problematic person in terms of being a medical professional. He had a position at the University of Florida that he was subsequently thrown out of because he is a total quack and had actually fabricated a bunch of data, and all of his colleagues thought that that was really terrible. There was a call for him to be drummed out, and he subsequently was drummed out. Most recently, he has been enacting some of the conspiracy theorists' most favorite things that can be enacted here in the state of Florida, including the removal of the fluoride from all of the water in the state of Florida. In fact, he came down here to my city in Fort Myers as the city of Fort Myers decided that they were going to remove the fluoride from their water supply. And right after they did that, they announced around the state that this was going to become state policy. But Dr. Demon Seaman, as my friend Rebecca Jones likes to call him, came down here to Southwest Florida to say, hey, yeah, good job. They're going to take the fluoride out of the water. And there was, by the way, there was no public outcry for this. There was no group of people that was demanding this. This is purely some quackery in response to this far-right radical group of people who are conspiracy theorists and the Maha people. And this is an effort to keep those folks in the Trump and right-wing authoritarian regimes, right? This is a little cookie for them, even though they don't want to do cookies. And, you know, they're talking about, oh, let's get rid of the colors and Skittles. That came up in the Florida legislature last year. But again, let's keep focusing right here on Joseph Ladapo, because he made national news last week when he announced that Florida is going to end all of their mandatory school vaccines. And this is incredibly dangerous, and public health officials across the country have decried this. And this is a huge issue for us here in the state of Florida, because as you know, it is required to have children be vaccinated to be put into public schools. Private schools have varying levels of whatever. It's like almost a free-for-all with public schools here in the state of Florida. But with private schools, right? Public schools have had vaccine mandates for decades and decades and decades. And this is in an effort to keep our little disease vectors from infecting the rest of the population with all these diseases, as well as deadly childhood diseases, to stop those like measles and mumps and polio and things like that. So this came as a surprise to everybody in the state of Florida. And again, no public outcry for this. There was no like big lobby group. There was no group of parents that was like, gee, we really want to have no vaccine mandates. This is really something, this is red meat for the radical right base of folks. Again, pulling the Maha folks into the coalition. But it goes even further, it gets even weirder as the weekend goes on, because Joseph Ladapo, went on Jake Tapper this weekend. And Tapper was asking him if he, did research, tried to figure out what was going to happen if these vaccines were no longer mandatory. And his answer was absolutely not. Absolutely no scientific base, absolutely no research, absolutely no predictions as to what is going to happen when we no longer are requiring vaccines for public school children in the state of Florida. Literally on a whim for the radical right-wing base. Like, it's just absolutely insane. The anti-science push of this is incredibly scary and dangerous. And not only just to fake it, like, I feel like, Bobby Brainworm, RFK Jr. is always trying to fake it, but Ladapo just doesn't even care, right? He's like, no, we didn't do any research. We just think that parents should make a decision on their own, okay? And here's the thing that I also want everybody to know. I mean, not only like the anti-science part behind, as a parent in the state of Florida, let me tell you a couple of things that are true, okay? One, it is always a parent's choice as to whether or not they want to get their children vaccinated and on what schedule they get their children vaccinated, okay? Your doctors work with you along those lines. I happen to have done that with all of my children, right? I really came around on vaccines after coming from abroad, and I understand where a lot of the anti-vax pushback comes back, because it does seem like a lot, and it can very easily be conflated into this idea that it's big pharma and stuff like that. But the evidence shows us that these protect children, ensure that they have longer lifespans without debilitating or deadly diseases, and make sure that they're not spreading it into the broader population, which is the other point of schools, because we ask children to go into massive situations, right, where they are with a bunch of other people and teachers and everybody else can spread. That is actually why during COVID, if you remember, we closed the schools. We closed the schools so they wouldn't be disease vectors, okay? That was the whole point, okay, of the closing the schools during the pandemic, okay? So you can choose not to have your children vaccinated. There are ways that you can get exemptions and still enroll your children in the state of Florida. Religious exemptions, other healthcare exemptions. And here's the thing, Florida is very open about that. There's plenty of kids in lots of different schools around the state of Florida who have anti-vax parents who are not vaccinated who get into schools, okay? So this idea that there isn't a parental choice is a false narrative, because there is right now, and there has been for a very long time, a way for parents in Florida who do not wish to vaccinate their children. They have an out for that. This is a purely political thing that this guy, this quack, is putting on the people of Florida, because the reason that it is mandated in schools, not only because of the vector thing, but it also helps with the vaccination rates, right? So it helps parents who might otherwise not think about it, get around to it, or even understand that these are important health components, get their children to a doctor, get them a basic medical, checkup, right? And get their vaccinations, because it's a requirement for school. So it has a broad public health benefit above and beyond even just the diseases that it helps, right? That it helps to stop, right? It actually helps the overall health of our children, because they're actually getting into doctors when they maybe don't, okay? So this is really, really troubling, as everybody around the country has talked about it, how crazy it is. And even our crazy quack here is rolling back, walking back a little bit about what he said. So now it's not, of course, like polio, we're going to still, require vaccines for polio and mumps and measles. But I think he said that they're not going to require the varicella, the chickenpox one, and the meningitis ones. By the way, if you haven't seen some of the videos that have been going around recently of people like losing their limbs from meningitis, like these are serious diseases. And hepatitis B, I believe, and influenza. But influenza, for most places in the state of Florida, is not a required vaccine for school-age children. It's just the regular mumps, measles, rubella, the MMR vaccine, and the varicella, and the pneumococcal ones, all right? And I'll tell you what, like I did, because listen, I'm a kid of the 80s, like probably a lot of you, right? And we got chickenpox. Actually, if you look very closely, I have like a scar on my forehead from a chickenpox, okay? Right? So we all had it in the 80s for the most part, and the idea was that you get it and you don't have it again, right? But we now also know that if you get chickenpox as a child, it opens you up to shingles as an adult, which is very, very painful and can be particularly deadly for older adults. And it is actually a disease that stays in your body that whole time waiting and has negative consequences. And they found a vaccine to eliminate it. And I had to, my doctor explained it to me. I said, hey, what, this is weird. Seems like it was something I had as a kid. So what's the big deal? And he explained why it's actually good. And really, if you can save your kids from having to get shingles later in life, might as well. Same thing with the HPV, but the HPV vaccine is not even one that's mandated right now, even though 90% of cervical cancers come from the HPV virus. And that is why that vaccine has been such a game changer and could potentially save lives of the, children of the future as well, because they're not likely to get that cancer. So we have a vaccine that prevents cancer. Lots of great stuff that is going on, but we are being led by, science denying fascists here in the state of Florida. And it's absolutely just bananas to me. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, and who knows how far they're going to roll this back. The other thing that I did want to say just before I end out today, because I just wanted to hop on this live because it's something that's been bugging me with having this dumbass in charge of anything scientifically related in the state of Florida, is that apparently this is not something that can be done without the Florida legislature. And Dr. Ladapo has actually said in his rollback of the vaccines, which ones he was going to ban, said, okay, well, we're going to ban it in 90 days. And then anything above and beyond that is going to have to go through the Florida legislature. So there is hope, I guess, for those of us in the state of Florida. So if you're listening to me here from the state of Florida, please give a call, email to your state senator and your state legislator. They will be meeting here shortly for committees coming up where they will probably take up a bill related to this. Please call and let them know that you disagree with banning vaccines in the state of Florida and that you expect the Florida legislature to stand up against the executive overreach that we see from Ron DeSantis and Dr. Seaman, and we expect them to do their job and make sure that our children and our communities are safe by just staying, at this point, they can just stay with the status quo, which is there's mandatory vaccines for the children in the schools, but if you want to opt out of them, you can. That is how it is everywhere in the state of Florida right now. There are exemptions that parents can apply for. So this has nothing, saying that this is about parents' choice is a complete misdirection because parents have the choice. And by the way, parents who don't want to send their children to public schools, there's private schools, there are charter schools. We now have a universal voucher program, right? You can send your kids to whatever crackpot place you want to on the public's dollar. Thanks again to the Florida Republicans, okay? I disagree with that, but if you don't like what's going on in the public schools, if you don't want to be a part of what's in the best interest for the public, take your kids somewhere else, okay? You have that option in the state of Florida, and you always have. There's no reason why the health and safety of the rest of us should be endangered because of these crackpot conspiracy theories that happen to get the right going. So Ron DeSantis can become the next Donald Trump, okay? Because that's what this is ultimately all about. It's all about Ron DeSantis shoring up, pulling in that Maha vote so that when Dear Donald croaks, right, he can be the next one in line. That's what we're looking at this point. And that's why Ron DeSantis and Trump are always going at it. And this is one way for him to kind of one up Donald Trump and get that group. But there's no reason why we should be the ones to pay for it with our lives. So yes, know that this will go to the Florida legislature. Let them know that you disagree with this and keep at it, because we have an uphill battle when it comes to that, because we do have a gerrymandered supermajority of Republicans in the Florida House and the Florida Senate, and they love to do whatever Ron DeSantis tells them. So you have to let them know as their constituent that you disagree with ending school vaccine mandates for the safety of our children and our community. So thank you so much for listening. I am Dr. Cindy Banier. I am a Democratic candidate for House District 78 against Genocide Jenna Persons. I'd love for you to support me. You can do that through sending me stars and liking and sharing all the stuff that I post here on TikTok. Love to have you go and visit my website, cindybanier.com. And you can help me take back Tally, going to my website, making a donation, going to ActBlue, making a donation, helping out, volunteering with my campaign. I need it all. I really appreciate you and appreciate your time. Have a great day. Bye. gotta find the button to end. Ah!